I so much love eating dinner with you. And I wanted to put it out to our audience who are watching. Feel free to join us.
Yes.
Bring your food, whatever you're eating today. Maybe as you keep watching, maybe you'll bring your healthy food and eat with us, because that's what this is about.
Yeah, man, the more the merrier. Absolutely. Gathering around food is a huge part of not only fueling our body, but getting that emotional needs out of our food as well. And, sharing it with other people.
Totally. Awesome.
So burgers?
Burgers. Can we just take a moment to talk about how much I love burgers?
Yes.
I know I love pizza and I love tacos, but I have to say, burgers are one of those things. Like back in the day when I would be going for fast food, burgers were just such a comfort food. They were easy. I knew it would taste good, it'd be satisfying, and yeah. So I don't go through the drive-thrus anymore. So now I gotta make my burgers at home, and you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we talked about last time, one of my first jobs was McDonald's, and like, I can still remember me and my friends would be like, just hold the cheeseburger and caress that waxy, fake ass bun that was back then heaven. The most comforting food. So now you have this beautiful burger in front of you and you're probably like, that's your burger? Yeah. Can I show you my burger though? Because I'm really proud of my burger. So I'm doing a naked burger. Yes, and I'm going to tell you why. Look at this burger. Can you not tell me that this is a beautiful texture and it really could resemble meat? Like, would you know by looking at this burger?
I wouldn't even know that wasn't a meat burger.
Right? So can I talk a little bit about what is in this burger? Because I'm so proud of it. It is legit all whole and healing foods, okay, from black beans that I, soaked and cooked myself to quinoa. So we already have complete plant-based protein just in the quinoa alone. I have onions in there. I have so much flax in there. And never mind, I have 2 whole cups of shiitake mushrooms.
Wow, all in that. And it still looks like a burger.
No one would know. My husband dislikes mushrooms immensely. My friends don't like mushrooms. They come over, they eat the burger, right?
Right. Yeah.
So for me to make a burger that not only fits that comfort food that we were just talking about, but that is literally fueling the body, loaded with fiber, loaded with nutrients, what we need, it makes me so happy. So it brings me to the point of where I can do a plain Jane burger, and I thought I'd dress it while we were, sitting here, if that's okay with you, just to kind of show you what I do and what I use.
Yeah, I want to know what you use. Totally.
For sure. And don't get me wrong, I love buns. I love bread. I'm like a bun connoisseur, I feel, but I'm really picky with my buns as well. And there is one brand I really like, and I can list it below because it is really reminiscent of that like McDonald's fluffy bun. However, it's sprouted and it's organic, and that's huge for me. I also thought I had one in the freezer, and I didn't.
Okay, so is it this one by any chance?
Yes! It's the sprouted Silver Hills.
Yay! Let me just show you. I'll show everybody what the bun's like. Look at this bun. It looks like a regular bun.
Looks like a Big Mac bun.
100%.
All right. Well, thanks, Yaz. Too bad you're not next door. I could come borrow a bun, but instead,
I got extra.
Instead, guys, I know a lot of people avoid buns. You're doing something different with the way that you're eating, etc. So we all eat differently. So I'm going to show you how you dress it if you don't want to use a bun, or in my case, if you don't have a bun. So I know a lot of people say like lettuce wraps and whatever. Dude, I can't really do a lettuce wrap. It's kind of messy. So I'll put mine on a nice leaf of lettuce and make sure. I know it's unconventional, but sometimes we eat unconventionally. And this is our dinner with the girls, and it's how we're eating our meals. So I'll grab a knife and a fork, serrate it. Obviously, we have the green goddess, marble. Look at that. Like, tell me that
Ooh,
doesn't
oh
look
my
like
God.
marbled cheese, dude.
Yum.
So obviously we're loading that with cheese. Ketchup, we've talked about this. You've talked about this. Ketchup is normally full of sugar. Love this ketchup, made with dates, great ingredients. So definitely, I feel like there's a way for us to be able to have the condiments that we love without going into having all those refined ingredients. There's always a solution, right?
Yes.
Look at this mustard. Mustard's one of my favorite condiments. This is an organic garlic mustard.
Ooh, fancy.
Really good. So always for me, ketchup and mustard is just that burger staple. You know, I'm just going really plain Jane, how, you know, we grew up having our burgers. Also a huge pickle fan, but I'm very picky with my pickles as well. So I love this brand.
Mm-hmm.
So I've sliced some up. So I'm just going to throw it on top there. And then they also make a beautiful relish.
Nice.
So I feel like this is really my take on a classic burger without the bun, but take a little peek here. The nutrition on this plate is amazing.
Very nice. That looks to die for.
So instead of picking it up and spilling it down my shirt, I'm going to use a knife and fork, and then maybe I'll have less laundry to do at the end of all this, right?
Right. Or you can do what I do and just eat in your apron.
This is very true. That is smart. That is a smart move you have there. So what's going on?
A lot of clothes.
What's on your plate today?
Okay, so I also have made a burger, but this time I decided to use meat because I actually, you know, I was wanting some meat, and sometimes you just want a meat burger. You know, you just do. So, or I do. And but you can again make it better. You can make it healthier. So I'll talk about the meat because the bun, you already saw the bun, spelt, you know, sprouted wheat. So that's that. The meat, most important is that it's grass-fed or pasture-raised. So these words, you know, people are starting to get to know what this means, but basic is, what did the animal eat? You know, the meat that this comes from, what did that animal eat? And cows are meant to eat grass. Hello, we learned that in like grade school, don't we? That's why they have 4 stomachs, so they eat grass, right? Because when they eat corn or soy or other grains, it's messing up their metabolism. And to be honest, these animals basically have diabetes. Like if we were actually to like measure them, we would find they have diabetes. And what's quite interesting about grass-fed and pasture-raised meats is when you interact with the meat, like when you cook them, it's actually different compared to the grain-fed. So just to be clear, unless it says grass-fed or pasture-raised, it's gonna be grain-fed because it's cheaper to do this. You know, for animals to be out in the pasture, it costs more money to the farmer. So getting back to when you're cooking it, grain-fed like hamburger or ground meat, it tends to cook down like half the size. I'm sure a lot of people watching know, like when you cook meat, you have to plan to have more because it's going to cook down to half the size.
That's so true. When I was cooking meat, that would happen with the ground beef. Like it hasn't been for like over, you know, 7 years, but you're right. I want to make tacos. And I was like, hey, where's my meat?
Where'd it go? So, and it turns out that meat is really full of water. But the grass-fed pasture-raised doesn't do that. It doesn't, you know, you don't lose half your meat when you're cooking it. It stays the same size. And it's because the animals, when they're eating the right diet, their body isn't so full of water, just like diabetic people are also really full of too much water. So the health of the animal, you can tell, you know, when you start actually trying it out. And the other area that's quite interesting is the taste. So you might not realize it if you've been eating a lot of grain-fed meat, but grain-fed meats taste sweet. There's like a sweetness to it. And the grass-fed or the pasture-raised, it doesn't have that taste, And to me, I even taste a bit of a gamey taste. Like, back in the day, my family are hunters and trappers, and I grew up eating like moose and bear, and those meats would have a certain kind of gamey taste to it. And when you first switch over to grass-fed meat, you're gonna probably notice that there's like this more meaty taste, less sweet taste. Crazy.
That is.
So to me, I've been only eating grass-fed, pasture-raised meats for a while now. So to me, I don't really notice that anymore. It just tastes like meat, like how it should be. and so I think that's really fascinating. And I wanted to take a moment too to mention, like, where do you get grass-fed? Because you can't just walk into Costco or your regular grocery store and find this stuff,
right?
And they'll try to trick you a little bit, and maybe they'll put organic, it's organic meat, but they've just been eating organic corn, organic soy. It's still not what they're supposed to eat, So in my burger, I actually have a little bit of ground beef and a little bit of ground pork. So I just want to take a moment to talk about, what do pigs eat? They eat, grubs and plants and, things that are in the pasture. So it really does affect the health of the meat, and it's so important to switch if you are going to eat meat, because the fat profile is strikingly different in the grass-fed versus the grain-fed. And I'm sure, Tanya, you could probably, tell me a little bit about that difference that you know about, because I know you're pretty much an expert.
That's so interesting, Yas. And yes, I can touch upon the fats. It's so interesting about the sweet meat and the cows being in a state of, diabetes, and the fact of actually why my ground beef used to shrink and I never knew, because it's water. Yes. Wow. Like, so valuable. So, we talk a lot about omega-6 and omega-3. And, sometimes it's confusing because they're both essential fats and the body needs both, but one is pro-inflammatory and one is anti-inflammatory. And we're like, well, why is pro-inflammatory essential? The body needs to be balanced. So we need the proper amount of omega-6, which are the pro-inflammatory fats, to omega-3, which are the anti-inflammatory fats. Unfortunately, as you probably know as well, like the North American Standard Diet, the ratio is completely out of whack, and we're getting about 30 times more omega-6 inflammatory fats than omega-3. And we're seeing this, right? We're seeing this in chronic metabolic issues, degenerative diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, things like that. So you're right. When the cows eat what they're supposed to eat, the profile of their fats is on point. And you have that balance between the inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory. And the fats of grain-fed cows, their inflammatory markers and inflammatory fats are through the roof. And as you said, what they eat, you're eating.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Thank you so much for helping me out with that. And so just to bring it back to, where do you get this stuff? Like, where do you, how do you know? Because you can't really trust an organic label. You got to go to the farmer directly, essentially. So here in my area, I shop at a local farm called Nicholin Farm, and I know that they have pasture-raised meats. Some little farms will actually get connected with other local farmers. I know that in like the Cambridge area, there's a place called Oak Ridge Acres. And when you walk in, they have different freezers that local farmers will fill with their meat, so that you have access to more of these meats for a cost that's not, so astronomical, because it does cost more to produce this meat. Absolutely. So you got to either go to places like this, local farms, your farmer's market. That's another place where actually I learned a lot of information. I went to a farmer's market and I was asking about the grass-fed versus, the grain-fed. And they actually told me something kind of interesting. They said, they want to do grass-fed, but they found that not the palates of people were so used to the sweet taste that they were finishing them with grain to make the meat a little sweet. And so that was something that, is just trying to appeal to the palate of the masses. But I think as more people are starting to become aware, they're starting to realize, like, no, I don't even want grain finished. I want grass fed, and I'm going to learn to enjoy the taste that is actually how meat is supposed to taste.
That's it. It reminds me of like, over time, our palates will change, and it does require a little bit of work on our part. But I mean, everything that's worthwhile is worth the effort and work. And it makes me think, I can't compare the meat, obviously, but like, let's say milk chocolate versus dark chocolate. You know,
Yeah.
my whole life, give me a piece of dark chocolate. Like, I'm not even going to touch that. Now, like, I'm eating 90%, 90% plus like raw cacao chocolate, and it's delicious. And if I take that piece of milk chocolate now and again, it is so sweet, and like, it almost makes me nauseous. So that's just an example of like, if you stick to something, your palate will change and will adapt. So same with the meat. So it's awesome that, you know what I mean? You've gone through that experience, and you can speak from experience.
Yeah, totally. So that's my burger. That's the meat. Otherwise, I've got some basic toppings. I've got, I did a little like mushroom, onion blend with some lettuce and the mac sauce.
Yay!
So I made the TLC mac sauce, and it is fantastic. Super easy to make, like as
really easy, eh?
recipes always are. Like, it really took no time to put together. And then this is going to last in the fridge for 14 days. So I've got mac sauce to put on whatever I want. So
mac sauce for everything.
And
mac
again,
sauce for everything.
To share, I use the same ketchup that you used in it.
Yes.
And for mayo, so I used a vegan mayo, and yeah, so you can really put good ingredients in, and it's so flavorful. And I gotta bite into this.
Bite into your burger. So I also was thinking about, as I was making my burger, why do I make my burgers from scratch? Why do I bother when there are so many vegan and vegetarian burgers on the market?
Please share that with me, because you know what, there really isn't. Like, what's it made with? You don't know.
That's it. So it's no secret, the market is saturated with vegan burgers. Some great and some not so great. So I want to just touch upon actually the two that are exploding in like the last probably 16 months, even more recently. Beyond Meat has introduced their Beyond Chicken now. So is Beyond and Impossible? Because you tell me right now, you can't even blink your eye. And they're everywhere, whether now it's available at the store, it's available in ground beef, in burgers, this fast food restaurant using it. Sorry?
I think I even saw it at Tim Hortons, the Beyond Meat stuff.
Yeah, they had like a Beyond Sausage breakfast sandwich at one time. So you have this vegan, in this case, vegan meats, all right? And I need to clarify with everybody, just because something is vegan doesn't mean it's healthy for you, okay? This is where I think there is a lot of confusion, and I feel like, over the next decade to 2 decades, we're gonna have a whole generation of junk food vegans who we're seeing the same degenerative health issues that we're seeing in people having the standard American diet. And that's scary. The veganism of today is surely not the veganism of, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. So do I indulge in the Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger? Absolutely. Do I eat it ravenously? Yeah, because there's so much artificial stuff in there. Here's a perfect example of like natural flavors, etc. These things aren't natural. There are things in there that make us want to eat the whole entire thing. I'm not lost on that. And I'm still going to indulge in them now and again. And we're talking probably once every 4 weeks at the minimum. And I try to stretch it to like 6 weeks. And that will be homemade by me though. Like, I will make my own instead of going somewhere not knowing all the sodium and extra stuff they're adding to it. So Beyond, really quickly, my biggest problem with Beyond is the use of canola oil, because that is an omega-6 and it is a highly inflammatory oil and it is dirty. All right, you guys can tune in on my TLC community. I talk a lot about how oils are extracted with solvents and hexanes, and you don't want anything to do with canola oil. And the second part is that they use isolated pea protein. I'd rather just eat the peas, because when you have an isolated protein, There's a lot of processing that goes on to get that protein out of the pea. They are non-GMO, so that's slightly better. But remember, non-GMO, you're still sprayed heavily use of pesticides, right? So I'm still getting a hefty dose of pesticides, a completely inflammatory burger, which is highly processed. Not great for you. Not nearly as healthy as what's on my plate. The Impossible Burger is also not listed as non-GMO, so it has definitely highly genetically modified ingredients. Plus, it is highly inflammatory. So there's one ingredient that I wanted to talk about, which is their protein, which is soy leg hemoglobin. Okay, so they've isolated this from soy, obviously, genetically modified and heavily sprayed, because soy is one of the most genetically modified and sprayed crops in North America. And they've made this, artificial hemoglobin that gives the meat more of that meaty color and actually kind of seeps out that meaty, I hate to say it, but like kind of ready, bloody grease that you get when you're cooking.
Okay, I'm getting really disturbed. I just have to say, I didn't know this. Oh my God.
Yeah. And that's why it's crazy, right? So thinking that both of these products are extremely processed, extremely inflammatory, and have like Frankenstein ingredients. And as well as I do, Yas, we are the guinea pigs. Our generation is the guinea pigs for genetically modified organisms. Yes. There's no research on what these, modified ingredients do. There's definitely no research on this new soy, leg hemoglobin. So we are the tests. And I always say, I don't want to be a guinea pig. So again, I'm fully transparent in what I eat. I take a lot of heat for that sometimes, and I don't care, because it's important to know, I know that that's shit. That's why I try to limit it. But I'm human, and sometimes I just want to throw a burger in a pan, and sometimes I do. But if anybody thinks that it's okay to have this on their plate as often, don't think that you're doing yourself any more favors than just going to McDonald's and getting, a normal cheeseburger. There are going to be different health issues, and there definitely are different issues in terms of like ethical treatment, etc., if you're choosing vegetarian or animal commercially farmed. But health-wise, not great.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for, helping me understand that, and bringing up this very important topic of Frankenstein ingredients, and that we don't really know what it does in our body. But what we do know is processed food, hands down, always is a problem. The more processed it is, the more our body reacts to it. So, we can use some common sense. And how far companies will go to, replicate meat. Like, wow.
Right. And I always feel like it starts with good intentions. The idea that the more meat-like these products can be, the more people who love meat and aren't looking to give up meat fully are going to be drawn to those products. And their idea is, we know how bad commercial farming can be for the planet, etc. But it's like we're swapping out one big issue with another, and we might be sacrificing our health at the same time, when we can either do burgers from scratch, and when we don't feel like it, use other reputable brands. All right. Like Dr. Pradner's. I'll put all these, you can see them all below. I'll put them in notes so we can go back and look at them. Is a really good one. Hillary's is an amazing one. So there are really reputable burgers made from real food and less artificial ingredients, sodium, etc. So it's possible to have it all. Really, it is.
Right. And you just gotta use your noggin. You've gotta, be paying attention to that ingredient list. I think that's one of the big things you've taught me, is really look at the ingredients and question the ones that you don't know what that is. You never heard of it. So you gotta think about, that could be something really, really processed.
Yeah. And making the assumption, to add to that just because something is a natural product doesn't mean that the natural ingredient is good for you. Again, I talk so much about this with my clients and my community. Natural ingredients that can come from nature can be bad for you. Petroleum comes from nature. Freaking talc comes from nature. Is that good for you? But the industry can say it's made of natural ingredients only. So if you don't know something, you look into it. You call me, we get help. Like, we want to know what we're eating. And then we have no one to blame but ourselves when I bite into, you know, a Beyond Burger once every 4 weeks and be like, yeah, I'm eating some processed fast food. At least I know it, right?
Exactly. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
It is power. So now that we've kind of talked about some gross things, but important things, what are we going to make for dinner next week?
What are we going to make? Well, you know, I love sandwiches. Like, that is one of another comfort food for me. So I would just love to cover sandwiches and to know your approach to sandwiches. And yeah, sandwiches.
Let's do sandwiches. And I promise I'm not going to come with a freaking bread-free sandwich. All right. Like, yeah, sandwiches it is. Totally down. And yeah, that sounds great.
Fun. All right. So, well, I look forward to it, and everyone joining us. Bring your sandwiches too.
Yeah, me too. Thanks always for having dinner with me. And I'll see you next week for a really awesome sandwich night.
I'll see you then.
Okay, bye, guys. Bye.